Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exploration of a map in the Cakeverse. So this is covering the area of the United Tribes of various places. Sadly, I do not have, or it's not working right now. I've been zooming in and out using a script on OBS, but it seems to be broken. So we will have to stick pretty much with this view, and hopefully I can move the mouse enough and capture enough so people know what it is we're looking at. And I'm also hoping I don't contradict anything that I wrote about this place. Things have changed. I have kind of updated a few things, but I don't think I've contradicted anything major so far. This is all part of the fun of world building, right? And well, I could probably kind of flip between the map and just large face like this as we talk about things. But the map is the important part. My face is not very important. Just probably should never be seen. Voice for radio, face for radio, maybe both. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Let's get on with it, shall we? So, going back to the map as a whole, we'll work from top to bottom. Even though I don't think I did that in the written post over on Cakeverse. But we'll work from top to bottom and point out the main areas. So the deadwood is the first one up the top here. So these trees, by almost any definition, these trees are dead, but they're not actually. They're not like trees that were once alive and have died, and the wood is just full of old, dead, rotting wood. Even though it is, these trees grow dead and rotting. It's all part of their life cycle, if you like. They don't have the lovely greenery or the solid bark and all this kind of stuff. They're very, very dark woods. And even though they are dead and rotting, and a lot of it is, the good wood that you get from these trees is extremely strong and extremely sought after, especially for its ability to hold and contain magic, be it being fed by magicians, just kind of, soaking magic into. We haven't got into magic and how magic works in the Cakeverse yet. There's a lot to go into for that. We'll probably save most of that for a separate video, but just in this one, just this wood, you can either soak it in magic, pour magic into it and it will hold it fairly well, or kind of more classic ideas of rune carving, power words, that kind of thing can be carved into this wood and they will hold and stay carved and kind of hold there, be it like a magic lock. You can lock a wooden box made of this wood very well with a magic lock, and it's very hard to kind of break that magic. You kind of have to have the magic key to open all that kind of stuff. So the wood itself is very sought after from the deadwood, and the deadwood is largely populated by a large beaver-like race. There's no water there, so they don't build dams, or they do build a lot of wooden houses out of this stuff, and they very much manage the deadwood incredibly well. So kind of all the too rotten stuff, all the really bad stuff, they get rid of, and they do look after and nurture the deadwood incredibly well. The beaver race themselves are very secretive. They have very unknown to almost everybody around the area. They do kind of have an outpost towards the south of the deadwood where they trade, and they have since been brought here. So again, this is where Cake Island is one landmass that was brought together. Everything else, even these kind of different areas here, are different bits of land smushed together in ways that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. The beavers did come with the deadwood. This was their home. The old place where they come from, the amount of these trees, it was a much larger area. That's what I'm trying to say. But within the deadwood itself, not a lot of strangers have gone into the deadwood. You normally go as far as this outpost, and that's as far as you get. It's believed, and again, we're kind of taking all of these kind of map ideas from the idea this is drawn by Cake Island and what they know. It's believed there is a very large city, possibly wood, possibly underground, possibly both, within the deadwood. But like I say, no one has been there. No one has explored it. So it's very much an unknown territory past that outpost. The beavers themselves have really developed a liking for other foods. So they do eat the wood. They do live off the wood, but they've really got into cakes, not eating the cake people, but cakes and bread and the kind of things like that. And they may have developed a very worrying taste for meat of any kind, but that's for the future. So moving down a little bit, we've got the Wolfmen here. The Wolfmen is both a town and a description of who lives there. So these are, so not to be confused with werewolves. These are Wolfmen. You are born a Wolfman and you die a Wolfman. You do not turn into a Wolfman. They are, as a whole, as a whole, they are a very peaceful race, but they do get very, very aggressive when confronted. And there's a small, probably around 2 to 5%, section of the Wolfmen who are insanely violent. More wolf than man, let's put it that way. Although, man is incredibly violent by itself, so maybe it's wolf plus man. Maybe, yeah, but anyway, let's not get into that kind of debate here. But the village is fairly small. There aren't a huge number of wolfmen, and indeed wolf women, and wolf children. But they're not wolves. They're wolfmen children and wolfmen women. I don't know how that would go. But anyway, that's beside the point as well. They're very dapper. They're a very dapper race. They like their finery. And they have no magical ability whatsoever. It is not innate in them. If they get into a fight, they normally rely on their cunning, their sneakiness, their speed. They are still very fast compared to most. They are bipeds, but they can also run on all fours when needed. But they are bipeds by and large. And their hands, even though they are paws, are capable of grip. So they can use tools, but they prefer not to. They find it uncomfortable, unwieldy. Again, there will be a few outliers who have got very good using a sword or a knife, etc. But normally they will use their own weapons, their own claws, their own teeth. Again, they like meat. They can also eat bread, cakes, all that kind of stuff. They're not purely a meat-eating race. But they're very dapper. It's the finery they like. They are big fans of wine. And so far, we haven't really seen anywhere that grows a lot of wine. Spoilers? Maybe, right? Then we move down to, and have I spelt this correctly? This is a word I've always struggled with. Maniac Metropolis. So Maniac Metropolis is very much based on the idea of Looney Tunes. So if you think of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and if you've never seen that film, just go watch it now. It's a good film. Bob Hoskins at his finest before he sullied himself by doing Super Mario Brothers. But it's very much this idea of, it's not quite as out there as Looney Tunes. Think more. So the people who live there, they can kind of be anything. They are bipedal. They are roughly average size, which I don't think we've defined yet within the world of the Cakeverse. But again, if we think of humans as average for now, until I change my mind, they are average size, but they can essentially look like whatever they want to look like when they are born. Now, they are born. They do have family units, same as the Wolfmen, same as the Beavers in the Deadwood. They do have family units, but it is very not likely, but it is possible that someone who looks like a rabbit, a human-sized rabbit, is with a human-sized spider, and their child, for some reason, is a human-sized caterpillar. These are all very real things that could happen. Now, they don't look cartoony, but they also don't look quite right, if that makes sense. Think when you're trying to get an idea of what they look like, you know, if you just glance at them, they would look like they belonged anywhere. But if you kind of look a little bit longer, they look more, a little bit uncanny valley, a little bit de-aged Indiana Jones, de-aged Luke Skywalker, like this kind of thing. That there's something about them, and indeed their city, Maniac Metropolis, that doesn't quite look real, if that makes sense. It is real, it is there, it's not fake, but there's just something about the look about them. The other key thing about the people who are born from Maniac Metropolis, which again is a city that was ripped and dumped here. There aren't as many as there used to be, so there's this kind of inner core of the city which is still full of the people that are from there, and then a lot of the outer area is filled with other people. So the Wolfmen have got like a few people there. No one from the Deadwood is represented there. The Woodcutters have a few people living there. And then there's also some people from outside. So there'll be some people from over here, from Circle City and the various places over here. But a lot of it is now empty. There's a lot of empty real estate apart from this core. Now, of the people who are from there and are born there, they don't have magical abilities as such, at least not as probably we would, you know, fantasy people kind of recognize it as magic. But they have this ability where they can always kind of, from nowhere, pull out what they need. And it's not necessarily what they need. Like, it's not as obvious as, oh, there's a locked door, I pull out the key. That's not how it works. So the key for that door will exist. And unless they found the actual key, they do not have the key for that door. But what they might be able to do is they need to get through that door. So they might be able to pull out of their back pocket a large crowbar that, you know, they'll manage, or a large shovel or a large hammer or something that will get them through that door. And then just as quickly as it's appeared, it's gone again. It's an innate ability they have. It's not one they can use very often. It's not something they can use all the time. But it's also not something that is infrequent. You know, like you'll see them use it 2, 3, 4 times a day, but they can't just, you know, constantly pull out, you know, large hammer, dynamite, blah, 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 blah. That's not how that works. But they're they're not secretive as such. They just don't care about people knowing how they work, and they don't really care about the outside world. They like to interact with it, and they like to introduce a little bit of madness to it. And from there is a seed. There is, within Maniac Metropolis, there is a certain character. Now, we haven't gone into characters, any kind of like the main characters of the Keiki-verse yet, but there is a character in there who goes a little bit further than your average citizen of that city in terms of their power, their abilities, and the amount of madness that they can bring. But we're not going to go too much on that. This is exploring maps. This isn't exploring characters. So we're going to switch down now. We're going to follow the road down. Riverhold we will cover in a separate video. That is a different area. Oh, let's talk about this wall. So the Deadwood is actually a kind of fairly solid, dense, natural wall here. It does spread all the way out to the border. The border is the green area, is the land that's covered by the I can never remember the full name of this. I should, because I'm the one who made it up. The United Tribes of various places. And we'll get into kind of how that works as well in a minute. But along this line with the Circle City people, there is a large wall. There's a large gate, and there's 2 large towers flanking the wall. During the war, the various tribes in Circle City were not on the same side. That's kind of hard to say, because during the war, Circle City and the various tribes, the kind of land area, the various tribes didn't really exist. And the kind of true story is that the people who didn't fit in with Circle City and didn't fit in with the guy over here, the glorious crab, they kind of moved to this other landmass and kind of carved out their own area, and that they're together as the United Tribes of various places because they don't really have anywhere else to go. They like the comfort of having this kind of collective power they can bring to bear if they need to, but they also very much want to be left alone, even within their own United Tribes. So this wall is very much to keep Circle City out. There is no such wall with Riverhold, but then Riverhold kind of keeps to themselves, and that you can't really, even these kind of large land areas here, you can't really travel freely through them. So that's kind of another kind of natural border. And then obviously the mountains here are a natural border. And then down here, there isn't anything. But again, there's a reason why you can't travel there, but that's on the Circle City side. So we'll get to that when we look through that map there. This is manned. Basically, there are, three? Yes, we don't call the 3.5 forts. They're kind of basically three main peoples who man the wall, and they take it in turn. So Maniac Metropolis will do it, then the Wolfmen will guard it, and then the Woodcutters will guard it. They don't mix, they don't match, they swap. And they each have their time manning the wall, and depending on who's manning the wall will depend on who gets through both ways, honestly. So that's kind of very open to change. So now that we've kind of mentioned the Woodcutters briefly, let's go talk about them. The Woodcutters are, imagine your woodsman from Little Red Riding Hood, right? They're or your lumberjacks, your big butch Canadian lumberjacks, right? That is where the Woodcutters are based on. They are all large. They would be above average for human size. They wouldn't be giant, but they would be above average. Very wide, very muscular, very. I don't want to use the word insane, but it would be a very good descriptor for your average woodcutter. They love to cut, and if there is no wood to cut, they will find something to cut. They are very happy to get into a fight. Life doesn't mean a huge amount to them. The woodcutters will often fight amongst themselves just for no good reason. Like I say, life doesn't mean a whole lot to them. They don't look to protect their own lives. They don't look to protect other people's lives as much as they can. When the war was on and they knew they were going to be kind of wiped out, they did kind of band together and with other people and force themselves to survive. But other than that, you don't really want to be left alone with a woodcutter. Now, as always, there are a small percentage who don't fit with the norm. Some of them are perfectly reasonable. They live in this forest. Now, this forest, again, is maintained by the woodcutters. The forest is known as the ever-growing forest. This is the ever-growing forest, right? Yes, it is. Let's go back to them. I'm looking at my notes as I'm doing this. Now, Cake Island does have kind of something similar. It's possible the two are related. It's possible the two are not. It is an unknown. If there is a link between the two, it is unknown at this stage. The trees do grow. The trees do expand. The woodcutters both look after the woods and are in a non-ending struggle against the expansion of the trees. Being surrounded by woods and being happy to cut down wood, they become excellent carpenters, excellent woodmen. Animals do live in the woods, so they're great hunters as well. Not known for use of the bow or stealth. They are fairly fast, so they're fairly large and they're fairly fast. And honestly, if they're going to hunt a deer, they will probably just run after it and hit it with their axe. They like their axes. In fact, they're one of the few peoples in the United Tribes who are happy to use. They don't create metal. There is no metal within the United Tribes or metal creation within the metal tribes. Obviously, there's now trade. They are one of the few peoples within the United Tribes who are happy to handle and use metal. The Wolfmen are very suspicious of it. The people in the Maniac Metropolis, the actual people who belong there, I don't want to say the word belong, but it's hard to describe what it is I'm trying to say at times. It's all here, but it's not coming out here. Are not definitely allergic, but metal is something that can really, really affect them in various ways. So the fact that the woodcutters are mainly wood and the ever-growing wood is here really does help, and it's one of the reasons why these people kind of separated from the other places. Cakeverse is full of metal. They love metal. They use a lot of metal. They make a lot of metal. Cake Island loves metal as well. They make a lot of metal. And then, as for the Crab King, well, we'll get to him eventually. So that's kind of the woodcutters down here. The Stone Eaters is an interesting one. So the Stone Eaters really refers to a fairly large and ornate entrance that's carved into the stone, which leads to a very large both mining operation for stone, not for ore, for stone. Series of tunnels. There's a labyrinth in there, and there's a very large underground city carved there, which is now empty. The Stone Eaters did not survive the war. They were hunted down to extinction, or possibly near extinction. But as far as the people of Cake Island, so not the Cakeverse, of Cake Island are concerned, the Stone Eaters have been hunted to extinction. And their caves are largely empty. There are a few unsavory sorts who call it home, but no one really knows who they are. They're not really a race or a distinct race. They are a motley collection of various people, and there's more than one of these kind of not loners, because they're not lone people, but kind of people who don't want to live in any of the societies that are sprouted up that call the abandoned tunnels of Stone Eaters home. There is a legend, unconfirmed, of a tunnel that does go all the way through somewhere into what is now known as the lands of Circle City. If that's true, nobody is aware of it, but it's possible because of the kind of types who call this place home. Possibly there's a smuggling network going on, through the large area that is this kind of underground mine labyrinth city kind of concoction that is down there. So then we get to kind of the last main area, which is the 3.5 forts. So the 3.5 forts were built to guard this border down here with this territory that I'm probably going to rename, because I still can't remember what its point was when I first designed this very basic map. So I still don't know what to do with it. But what I do know is that they were very aggressive, or during the war at least, this border was very aggressive, however it would have looked at that time. And indeed, after they'd settled and made this area, that area was still very aggressive towards the various tribes. So obviously the ever-growing woods is manned by the woodcutters and is a very effective border. You wander in there and you're not meant to be there, you're not going to come out alive. You're going to be chopped into small bits, possibly eaten, possibly mailed back to your parents. It really does depend. The woodcutters are insane, almost to a one, with a few outliers. But anyway, so the 3.5 forts are manned by 3 very large and very, very onery pigs. Very much kind of based off the 3 Little Pigs, but these are the 3 Little Pigs who have grown up. They have each claimed a fort. They did not build these forts, so these aren't. I'm not going so far as to say one fort is made of wood. I think one was straw, wood, and brick. I think were the houses in the 3 Little Pigs. Not going that far. The forts were well built and well manned during the wartime period and a little bit after the main war as well, but have since been abandoned for their military purpose and are now have been claimed by these 3 pigs. They are related. They are brothers, and they have claimed these forts and they have filled them with people who are willing to go with their cause their cause is a little bit of a mess and a little bit of a mystery. Again, the United Tribes is very much the kind of outcasts of everywhere else and the people who want to be left alone. The people who go down to the 3.5 forts are kind of even more in there. So obviously the Wolfmen have all collected together. The Beaver race have all collected in the Deadwood. The Maniacs are still in their metropolis, even though that is done. It is collapsing, and their numbers are becoming less and less and less as time goes on. The Woodcutters have all kind of banded together and come into the Evergrowing Wood did come with the Woodcutters. So the Woodcutters were here before everybody else kind of moved this way. Which I think again is kind of important. So they've kind of been there the longest. The Metropolis would have been there as well. The Wolfmen is all kind of completely new. They moved here. The Deadwood also would have been there. I don't know when the Deadwood appeared though. The Deadwood was not there from day one. It appeared afterwards, as did the Metropolis. The Metropolis was not there day one. The Evergrowing Wood was. It was a lot smaller then. But the Deadwood and the Metropolis kind of appeared later on. The Wolfmen kind of moved, and then the 3.5 forts led by these 3 pigs is very much kind of everybody else. So anybody else who and when I say everybody else, this could be kind of like an entire race. So one of the people who share a house in the 3.5 forts or a home in the 3.5 forts are the dinosaur people, because the dinosaur people have been forced from their natural area, which does exist. Spoilers, over in the crab area. But they've been forced from there due to the war and the expansion, and they've kind of moved across and now being happily led by the 3 pigs and the 3.5 forts. Now, the 3 forts are all linked by an underground tunnel. And even though there is a lot, there's a large gap between each of them, they are very well linked. They do kind of operate as a one, even if they are ruled separately. But as these people, these pigs are brothers, they do like each other. They're not fighting against each other, but they do see it's them before anybody else, and they're people now. And it's not just like a foot tunnel. There is transport in those tunnels that can move things backwards and forwards and incredibly quickly. Now, the half a fort, which is down the bottom here, if I was showing you the map, you can see what I meant. The half a fort is, it was meant to be a 4 fort to line the wall, but kind of the aggression stopped. The military need for these forts became less, and construction of the fort was abandoned. Now, since then, how would you best describe them? Imagine centaurs, but spiders rather than horses as the back end is the best way to describe them. So kind of a spider centaur race now call this kind of half fort home. They don't, but also do accept the rule, the council, if you like, of the 3 pigs, and they kind of do follow most of the rules and the laws that follow the rest of the forts. But they are also a little bit separate, a little bit on their own, a little bit detached. There is a incomplete tunnel built from obviously this fort here down. So the tunnel basically goes on a line along here with a lot of places where you can close it, collapse it. Again, this was military built, so if one fort gets taken, you can close the tunnel so enemies can't come at you from that way. The tunnel over to the half fort is incomplete. There is a large section built this way coming out of the half fort. Very small section built this way. Rumor is that there is a little bit of the tunnel, possibly a small guide passage or exploration passage when they were thinking of building the tunnel, that does go from one to the other. But again, if it exists, nobody on either side knows where the entrance is, if that tunnel does exist. Now, these 3 are very protective. These are they're the main impetus behind the United Tribes. These are the people who got the tribes to come together. And even though the capital of the United Tribes is seen as the metropolis just because of its sheer size and ability to hold other people. The kind of ruling council now, obviously everybody here, even the beavers do have a seat in the council, but they very rarely turn up because they don't like to leave their deadwood. But everybody here does have a seat. And the woodcutters, they, again, within the woodcutters, even though they are mainly maniacs, that there is obviously that kind of section, the section that kind of made them join up with the tribe so they could kind of withhold their extinction when, Circle City and the various other places were pushing on them. There is this side of them that knows they have to protect themselves, and there is this side that understands that other societies do exist and they have to play nice, blah, 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 blah. But it's very few of the woodcutters know that, and they very rarely attend the kind of council as well. So most of the impetus for the United Tribes and most of the laws and kind of moral compasses, because they do try to share a moral compass across the United Tribes, it doesn't work very well, and there's no real joined up law system, but they try their best. Does come from the 3.5 Fort. So, even though this is the capital, this really is the beating heart of and what keeps the United Tribes together. Each fort is essentially identical to the other one, as the Free Pigs have taken the hold of each individual fort. They have put their own flavor into it and, maybe moved a keep or two. But they are, basically built to a set design. So they do look fairly similar. And then the half a fort looks very different, honestly. It's there wasn't a lot of it built before, and since the spiders have moved in, they've made it very comfortable for spider traversal and not so much anybody else, or spider centaur traversal and not so much many else. It's more built to their specification as it goes on. And I think that covers the main areas in the Tribes of Various People. Now, there are a couple of tribes that I have left off, and there are a few things left to discover in here. One of them is very important to one of the stories that I'm writing, but isn't there yet. But yeah, there we go. That is the United Tribes. Those are the main areas of interest. Again, I tried to keep the maps fairly empty so there can be a lot more exploration. The squares you can probably ignore because they're not to scale. So obviously on this map, everything is to the same kind of scale, but I think I did different size squares on the big map of this to the map of this. And then you can obviously see, as I'm kind of filling in the big map, at the moment I'm going from, I've moved over from Cake Island over to here. I will probably skip Riverhold and we will do the Freelands of Circle City next. And then honestly, after that, there probably won't be a lot of, I need to decide what to do with this area. The shadow is completely separate and will probably, no, it doesn't need to change shape. The shadow is also part of the game that I'm making. So it has a very distinct shape in that game, but that doesn't need to be represented here because that takes place before this map will exist. What we would know about the Great Kingdom of the Glorious Cab. He's not a glorious cab, London cabbie, or just the cab itself. Very, very little is known, but we will pepper in a few places. Like I say, the dinosaur people will know where their old homeland was, so we'll put that in there. Freeland Circle City is well known. We don't know what we're doing with this, so that'll probably remain empty for a long time until I work out what to do with it next. And then the Blessed Sound of the Paladins doesn't really have a lot in it, but we will cover that as well. We'll probably do a video dedicated to this, and I might do this as one video, or there just might be two very short ones, and very short for me probably means an hour each. But anyway, that is the various tribes. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one for Circle City. Also, if you want to read the stories, and look at the maps in more detail and just read the kind of blurb that I came up with, text blurb, go to cakeverse.co.uk. We are building out stuff there. We've got some stuff on gods. I will start to build out characters, and I'll start to detail magic systems and that kind of stuff, and then probably cover them in a video after I've written some of it down. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all when I see you all. Bye for now.